coming today. So let me just pull you up. I just finished that call. Ty Bailey. There we go. Forest Hills Financial Group.
That's it.
That's you, right?
Yes, that's me. That's me. I reached out. I actually reached out to Gordon sometime last week because I saw he had established a new company. I think it was Ever.
It's Mirth Rare Earth Materials.
Okay, like Mithril. Okay, so yes, so I was very interested because I was part of the private equity deal in Phoenix Financial when we raised capital for Graphoid when they were getting themselves established. And I know that Gordon was one of the main drivers because of his innovations in the graphene extrusion process or extraction process. So I was very excited when I heard that he was starting a venture.
What was the group, the Phoenix group you said you were part of, right?
The private equity, where we raised capital for Graphoid. In addition to Twitter, Square, a couple of other companies before they went public.
What was your role? So here we got, by the way, we have Nick on the call with us. We've got Chris and Ty. Ty knew of Gordon. You could share, Ty.
Yeah, so I've been a stockbroker for 20 years. And when I was working with Phoenix Financial, Rich Cardinal, who was the head of the syndicate, so we did a $10 million raise for Graphoid when they had just come with a new technology, but essentially Gordon it was his process that made Graphoid able to be possible, because they had, I think, the Lac Knife mine in Canada with a lot of graphite, but he would have the ability to turn the graphite into graphite. And I've been to the ballistics lab they have in Ontario, seen some of the work that they were doing up there, so I'm very excited about what the future prospects could be.
That's the connection. So I didn't know both of you had asked what the connection was. So when you saw what was happening with Gordon, did you get to speak with him, or you just made the connection?
At that time, I was kind of on the outside, just like an investor. Just I would say still tentative about the situation because it was still unproven. The company, as much as the technology has a phenomenal story, as a stockbroker, we are in the job of telling phenomenal stories. So I had to make sure that there was actually some substance behind it. But at the time, he was a celebrity. He was the man of the hour. Him and George Economo was the CEO of Graphoid at the time. But I did develop a relationship with George, and because I had put together a deal around the time when oil prices had collapsed from $125 to $25 a barrel. This is like over 10 years ago or so. I had brought George in because two gentlemen, one was a client from Norway who was building oil rigs, and he found out that graphene is able to be anti-corrosive. It has anti-corrosive properties, so he was interested in developing a spray coating that could be used on oil rigs. At the same time, I was talking to a gentleman, a prospective client, who had the charter to bring oil from Saudi Arabia to China through before the new prince became the prince. This gentleman had the charter with his father. So we had brought together CEO of Graphoid, CEO of this oil company in Norway, and CEO of AM Aramco at the time, American. And we were looking to develop a deal because when you put graphene into a sponge, it can pull oil out of water. And we were looking at the prospect of developing an industry sponge that could basically make oil spills a thing of the past. But the deal fell apart because OPEC kept the oil prices constant, and the prices dropped like from 125 to 25 in a very short time. There was a lot of bankruptcies, and the deal never happened. But I was able to at least establish that connection, and like I said, for the future, I still have a network involved, a network of people network of investors, and people are always interested in new technologies. But graphoid, with its multiple applications, I think has a tremendous amount of potential for the future.
And just so you know, you take the credit. You're the first individual who responded to our website, our LinkedIn.
Okay.
So I don't know, Nick, if you knew this, but this came from the LinkedIn set. So that was the first reply that we had gotten. So this is Nick. Nick was pushing this. He actually threatened me with my life. And he said, if you don't get that up, you're dead meat. And so that's how this connection came. And so were you following? Was it something Gordon said? Is that how you?
So Gordon was excited about the new venture, and I said I was excited about what the future could bring. And but I also sent him a message saying that because of my understanding of his work, and I've been involved in raising capital before, that if your company in the future might need investors or need capital to raise, for your operations or your research or whatever the case might be, that I could potentially bring some people in and maybe get a couple $1 million for you guys.
So what types of deals have you worked on where you brought the millions in, or what type of deal flow, what type of size, what have you done? So we can get a better understanding.
It was primarily pre-IPOs. So we were dealing with Twitter, Square, Palantir. Phoenix was actually the largest private holder of Palantir stock before they went public. So we raised, I would say, between $10 to $12 million across different deals. Because at the time, the pre-IPO space was very hot. It was exclusive, and we were buying shares directly from insiders of the companies. So that that allowed us to pass it on to other investors at a deep discount to where other people were able to access them.
So we're raising in Merck Rare Earth Materials $100 million.
Okay.
That's the number.
The company, now, when I talk about 10 to 12 million, I'm talking about just myself personally. The company Phoenix as a whole, we raised about 275 million. That company went over 2 billion. So I do still have a network of people who have clients across the country that have an ear for investments. So if you guys are looking for 100 million, what's the vision for the company? Like, what exactly is the value proposition, and what is it that makes you unique?
Chris, Nick?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, I was wondering.
My audio is off.
It's all right. I understand the basic essence of graphene as a substance and its potential in various industries, electricity and materials, but I'm wondering, what is your value proposition in Merck Rare Earth, and what is it that you seek how do you seek to distinguish yourself from other possible competitors?
So let me tackle that a couple different ways. So the idea of Merck Rare Earth Materials, and I don't know, Ty, if David has shared nothing. Okay. Maybe we should send you that, because I think that probably will be helpful. And we can take care of sending you the deck and video. And there's some one sheets that are specific to the 5 verticals that we're focused on, and that is aerospace and defense, electronics and computing, automotive, electric vehicles, batteries, energy and healthcare, and medical technology. Those are the 5 verticals. There are 2 parts, obviously, is taking rare earth minerals, combining with graphene, developing new material, 23rd century materials that are super strength, super conductive, and hyperconductive, super strength, and
super reactive.
There we go. And we have got a model that includes the combination of working with universities, research institutions. So we've identified 25 on the Eastern Seaboard, pretty much Boston through Washington, D.C., that both Gordon and myself can drive to. And that's a who's who. Stevens Institute of Technology, New Jersey Institute of Technology, University of Delaware, University of Maryland, Johns Hopkins University, a number of research institutions, Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab, MITRE Corporation. So they will assist Gordon in their discovery efforts to combine the rare earth. Coupled with that, we've done outreach to a number of agencies, primarily focused in the U.S., and that's the White House Executive Office of the President, Office of Science, Technology, and Policy, Department of Defense, Department of Transportation, Department of Commerce, Department of Energy, to determine what their needs and requirements are within those agencies, and then how these new materials that we would be creating can be helpful to identify and solve some of those challenges that they have. So the funding would be a combination of non-dilutive equity that would come from sources potentially from like InQtel, which is the VC arm for national security and defense sectors, government programs, various SBIRs, DARPA, as well as private investors. And so I've done an outreach probably to about 150 different both angel investment groups, VCs, and private equity, all based in, except for one, all are based in the U.S. There are some investors in those groups that are obviously non-U.S. citizens. There's some in Canada, there's some based in Europe. But the idea is to cobble together at least $50 million, but the ideal amount would be $100 million to $200 million to really develop the research capability that Gordon would need, the facilities, the machinery, the milling that would be required, and then additional money for hiring of staff, probably at least a two-year runway that would cover that. There are a number of other initiatives within the broader project movement that David can get into that includes the identification of these materials, automation for mining capabilities, as well as for processing. So the idea is looking at, for Vermont materials, is really the development of these 17 factorial of the rare earth materials that will come out of the combination of metals as well as graphene.
Quick question, because I'm a science buff. I have a lot of very big on scientific developments, and I realize that graphene could potentially be one of many materials because it's basically graphite's I tell people it's monoatomic graphite. Basically, you bring graphite to a single atom, and you have a substance that has different properties than graphite as a block. Are there other elements that you're exploring into? Maybe, I'm not sure, copper or silicon, but any other elements on the chemical table have similar properties when brought down to that monoatomic level?
Let's step back and we'll show you where this came from, and this might be useful. Gordon and I connected. I spoke for SRI or Stanford, some group, and I spoke. And my background in organic chemistry, physics, calculus, I've owned over 20 businesses in different industries. And I spoke, and Gordon reached out to me afterwards, and we started to have this conversation about the possibilities because he is the number one foremost expert in graphene in the world. He's been able to take graphene and tie it to asphalt, for example, and he did it in 2 weeks. And one of the reasons that it was substantially different is when he added the graphene to asphalt, it disappeared. You cannot find the graphene anymore. It melded into it, the process he used. And that was so counterintuitive to anything that he had created. The challenge is, in the world of intellectual property, the universities more or less own his life. He gets $4 for everything makes 100 million. Sometimes he gets 6, but it's about 4. And we started talking about possibilities. We started talking about what could happen if we did it in low Earth orbit. What if we would take microgravity and be able to create molecular structures? And I don't know how familiar you are with microgravity, but when you're creating a molecule on Earth, it starts to form and then it collapses. It collapses on itself because of gravity. What if we can create that and put a keystone in it? And I don't know if you're familiar with when you create a molecule. It sounds like you know. When you create it, once it's created, you can duplicate it. It doesn't need the same conditions to be able to be replicated. So if it was created in microgravity and we brought it down, you don't need the microgravity to create the next molecule. It actually will just produce itself. You can create it in a lab, synthesize it.
Similar to the way how they make synthetic rubies by planting a seed ruby and then it grows around it.
Correct. Then you create a crystallization off of that initial product, and that's because once it's formed, the universe knows that there's a molecular structure, a mapping to follow. So we started having a variety of conversations about what possibility there would be, and then we stumbled on the fact that, well, there's not a lot done being in the 17 rare earth materials and that metal, and that's a possibility. And we started to play it out because he's got 41 patents in this category. What if we just took, and that's the number, is 41. What if we were to take graphene and tie it to this number of 17? And it sounds like you know the mathematics behind it, but that's 17 factorial. And if you took 17 factorial, but then you looked at it, it's not an equal factorial, because within each one you could do 1%, 3%, 7%, 12%, 19%. So you have, I don't even know what the calculation would be of factorials that are embedded into it. So we started to explore what would that mean. This was pre-rare earth materials being important to the world as it is today. Okay, so this was about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. I can actually tell you when he and I met. Gordon Chu. He and I met 11/4/23. So we're quite a while. There was no rare earth material challenge that we were facing. We're facing COVID, but we weren't facing that. So we started to explore what possibilities can happen out of that. And there's another set of things that we're working on. And we decided that we would like to create an entity that would be able to focus on rare earth materials and graphene. It's enough. And he believes in his knowledge. If you know him well enough, he's a crazy scientist. I mean, he's the type of guy, when you see him, he shows you, this is my what do you call them, hot pepper tree. And he has a hot pepper tree. They're plants. But it's got a stem that's 2 inches in diameter. Like, that doesn't happen. Like, what's wrong with this picture?
And you're interesting, not to cut you off, but because you're into organic chemistry, I was always curious, because graphene is essentially carbon, are there ways of bonding it to organic matter that allows it to be like a foundation for transplants or because one of the companies that I was involved with is called Organovo, and they have something called 3D bioprinting, where they lay down layers of cells, and the cells begin to communicate with each other, and they're trying to build organic structures that have the host's actual DNA, so that there's not.
It inherits the host.
Yeah, exactly.
So the one thing I'd say is, don't go visit him at his house. He's probably going to put graphene in your food. But I didn't say that out loud. Just say I didn't. I swear.
Okay.
So he's just always, his mind is racing in different ways, and we talk a lot of science. We talk a lot about possibilities. So my science background. And what ended up happening was we started to say, well, what if we could change this news to the world? And we came up with tying them together. And so Merck Rare Earth Materials was formed to bring new to the world materials that are hyperconductive, superreactive, and super strength that can give us the capabilities of 23rd century materials. We've been working with rare earth materials.
Superconductive, and what was the third thing?
And super strength. So think about it this way. If our computer systems are maxed out and we had a new material that made it move faster, what if we had hyperconductivity within a computer system or in an area? What if we create super strength materials that couldn't have been created before? And there's a few more supers in there, but what if we change that formulaic? See, the minute a molecule is formed, you often don't need the last one. it's no longer necessary. So